asked. And I think the key question is this. Whenever an institution or institutions perform poorly, the first question should be directed at the corporate governance structure of the institution. Because every institution invariably must have strategic goals and targets. And so if these entities at the commencement of every year set themselves certain goals that we are going to deliver X, Y, Z, and it's important, and I think somebody made the point earlier, that profit may not necessarily be the overriding motive of state-owned enterprises. The point is that state-owned enterprises feel a vital gap that normally private enterprises either are unwilling or unable to fill. And also because of certain predictability of service delivery. Because when you leave it to private enterprises, because they are driven by profit and they are driven by other forces of demand and supply and other external forces, they may not necessarily respond to the fundamental variable of constant delivery. So to avoid this, state-owned enterprises fill that critical gap among other important reasons, such as ensuring that there's a reasonable accessibility to certain utilities and services, and that cost is kept to a certain bare minimum, among others. But every entity starts or begins its year by setting itself certain strategic goals. So if you do have boards, and that is where, again, the problem comes in, if you do have boards that are competent, that are responsive, that have an understanding of the strategic movement of things within the environment in which they operate, boards would invariably have to ensure that these losses are kept to a bare minimum or eliminated altogether. If we have politicized our boards, and this is a point that cannot be delivered, from government to government, every time new governments come, we have to constitute boards. And we have gotten to that point where, with the inception of every new government, all boards are dissolved, and they are dissolved even to the point of university. Unfortunately, we have locked this in law, the transition law, which has actually encouraged the practice of creating not only inconsistencies, but deeply politicizing these boards. So the question is, what is the character of the board for these various state-owned enterprises? What is the qualification, or what are the qualifications of members of these boards? And to what extent have these boards played the critical oversight corporate governance role to ensure that things are kept within prudent measures? As I indicated, it may not be profit-driven. I mean, these entities may not necessarily be profit-driven because they are state-owned, and therefore they are as socially driven as they are commercially driven. But it's important that in the minimum, if they are not even making profit, that they break even and that they do not become a drag on the taxpayer. So I think these fundamental points are things that obviously may appear implicated within the context of what we have, what we are staring in the face. The fact that we have a consistent string. In fact, the report indicates that this appears to be a better improvement over last year, i.e. almost a 50% improvement over last year, which tells you that as bad as this one is, we're actually making progress. But clearly the finance minister's exasperation is understood. And the reason one can understand that is we can't even wait to the point of zero.